Do you just think about conceptually, like, metaphors and like ways of explaining the difference to people between animation editing and live action? I think about it all the time.
Welcome to episode 3 of Panels and Pacing, an animation editing podcast. Today we'll be featuring Caleb Yoder, who's recently worked on Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Avatar, Seven Havens, Digman, and Star Trek Lower Decks. Hey, how's it going?
It's good. Excited to chat for a little bit.
Yeah. So just a little bit of background on you and I's relationship. We crossed paths at a few years ago at Titmouse, and now we're both pretty active in the kind of our animation editor kind of networking. We have a Discord. We're both pretty active at networking events and kind of the organization of this kind of small niche community that we've found ourselves in. So I feel like I see you at a lot of these networking events, and like not even like a planned thing. We know that we don't always know each other are going to be there. I guess my first question would be like, what do you get out of networking? Why do you like going to these events?
That's a good question. Why do I like going to them? Well, I mean, I think at this point I've been to enough of them that a lot of the people there, maybe most of the people there, I will recognize and be able to catch up with, and we can talk about things that don't necessarily have to do with work. So it's just hanging out with friends. But, you know, when I first started going to stuff, if you're kind of socially awkward like I am, I feel like networking can be like a bitter medicine that you just have to force yourself to do and accept that every now and then you might go to this event and not talk to a ton of people and leave feeling kind of unaccomplished. But over time, I feel like by consistently going to these things, I have kind of built up a network that I can reliably count on to be there to talk to. And you are one of those people in my network.
Yeah.
And I also consider you a friend. And I hope, you know, that's really the idea, though. Like when you go to these things, I'm not trying to just make connections. I'm trying to make relationships. So,
yeah, I totally agree with that. I feel like one of the things that I enjoy the most about going to these events is kind of playing a little game with myself. It was like, all right, I didn't talk to anybody beforehand about whether I know if they're coming. I'm going to surprise myself and kind of see how many people I run into. And it's usually a handful of the same people, but sometimes it's new people. This one we went to the Pluribus for your consideration event this past weekend, and I saw Caleb in line with his wife, and then I like ran into one of my oldest connections out here, my old documentary editor Ishai Seton, who's kind of one of the earliest people to kind of give me a chance and hire me as an editorial intern. So we go way back, like 17 years or whatever it is, and so it was cool to see him. I've seen him at a bunch of stuff.
It's a weirdly small world, small industry. I was also running into people as I was like passing through to get to the end of that extremely long line.
Yeah.
But fun.
And then it turns out someone that he knows, that someone that I had met recently at a TV Academy peer group, who was at this event and I was talking to earlier. I saw him and this guy Ishai talking later, and it turns out the Ishai, who was a director on a movie called The Big Swim, had this guy Gabe as his composer, and so they also go back a long time, and I was like, oh, the corner of my eye I was seeing them talking and saw them chatting and went up to them afterwards and to the small world thing. So let's kind of jump back into your start in the business. How'd you get started in entertainment, and how did you find your way out to LA?
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, everyone has that moment in their career where they kind of got the foot in the door. And for me, I think that was probably my internship with DreamWorks. So I interned with them the summer before my senior year of college. It was doing videography work for their education department. which no longer exists after they were acquired by NBC Universal. A lot of those positions got cut, so that's not a thing anymore. But when I was doing it, it was great, and very lucky for me, it kind of rolled into a full-time videographer job when I graduated college. I already knew the team. They were happy to work with me. So that was really a way to make it much easier for me to leave my hometown in Pennsylvania and come to LA, make the big move across the country. And I mean, I should also add, I don't think I would have gotten that DreamWorks internship if I didn't do a very boring internship in my little college town the summer before, doing like videography work for a local broadcast station. It was a lot of like municipal meetings and just like setting up a camera and letting it roll in the back and trying not to fall asleep. So yeah, I feel like getting that early on led to the next thing, which, and then the DreamWorks was a really big foot in the door where I got to meet a lot of people there, and they helped me along. After our department got laid off, I found my way into TV production at DreamWorks TV, and that's where I stayed for a little bit until editorial. Yeah.
Nice. So that kind of ties into how you got into editing. What was your kind of first official like editing or assistant editing, kind of like, what was your first official post-production job?
First official one was as an assistant animatic editor on DreamWorks Dragons Rescue Riders. So it was like a preschool version of their Dragons franchise. And it was great. It was very chill. I felt like DreamWorks TV was a really great place to come up as an assistant editor. We all kind of sat in like this pod arrangement, like me and the rest of the assistants, and it was nice because we could kind of just share knowledge that way and be like, have you seen this Premiere bug before? Like, what do I do? And I also was in a rhythm of doing all the animatic builds and then reviewing them with my editors, and they would give me notes. And I feel like just doing that week after week for years really improved my animatic editing quickly. So it was a great place to start.
Nice. Do you have any editors that you kind of like were mentored by and kind of helped take you under their wing and show you how to kind of edit for animation? Or did you kind of like figure it out as you went along based on just kind of, previous knowledge and instincts?
It was really that show, Rescue Riders. One of my editors, Bess Thompson. I later worked with her on Lower Decks when we were both animatic editors. But she was a really great mentor to have when I was starting out as an assistant. She made a point to, say, hey, do you want to come over to my office and we'll watch your build, and I'll point out areas where I would have done something a little different, or here are some tips. So creatively, like the art of editing, I think I picked up a lot from her. And then technically, I think it was just all the other editors around me were able to drop little pro tips about, hey, have you tried doing this? And I didn't know you could alt drag a clip to duplicate it, and like little things like that. It's how I built up that knowledge of software.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to bring up, because I've always found that the stuff I did take a little bit of editing courses in college, but kind of like cursory, here's intro to this program, here's Final Cut, here's Avid, here's After Effects, and it wasn't that extensive. And I really felt that on the job learning with any of the programs that we use is where it's at, is where we learn the tools. And yeah, having someone be like, oh, hey, you're doing this thing, you're taking 3 clicks to do this thing where you can do one keyboard stroke or one, one click if you set up your situation this way. And that really is one of those things where you just kind of learn quickly to become a sponge to that kind of stuff. And it's really just a lot about understanding what your brain wants to do and the program allows you to do, or how to accomplish that with the program, and then also just training your fingers to have the muscle memory to do it, whatever you end up making a keyboard shortcut or whatever the basic stuff is. Every editor is going to work a slightly different way, just because it's such a creative craft that someone may do something this a totally different way.
Yeah, totally. And another thing about that job, I actually had to take a test for it, which is something that I've never had to do since then. But when I was in production wanting to transition to editorial, they were like, here, and they gave me some board. It was for the Trolls TV show. They gave me some like boards, like a little sequence, and here's some sound effects you can use, and here's the dialogue, and turn this into an animatic, and we'll watch it, and it'll like based on that whether or not you get an interview. And yeah, I just bring that up because it was kind of cool. Like it was like literally, well, it wasn't my first time. I did like a small animatic in college, but like it was really my first like time doing a build for real, like of an episode, and it was to like apply to this thing. And apparently I did well enough at it
Yeah.
to get that interview. But
Yeah.
yeah, never tested for anything since then.
I also had to do a test, my first animation gig.
Really?
Yeah, well, because I had 5 years working in reality TV, and I had been editing. I'd gotten to edit for the last 3 years of that. And when I was looking to switch when I was looking to switch into animation, I got a chance over at Bento Box for the show Bob's Burgers, which my wife has been working on for years. And yeah, it was a take-home test, and I had to. It was an Avid bin with media, and there was 2 steps. One was build a. It wasn't animatics. It was for picture editing. So it was build like a V1 pass of the sequence. So I had the animatic as a quick time, and I had the dialogue, and I had all of the shots in sequence, and I had to just lay it out and make sure everything was synced up with where the cuts are supposed to be in the animatic, and that was step 1 of the test. And then step 2 was as if 20 of those shots had retakes on it, and I had to cut in the retake. So without really having any real pipeline knowledge at that point, I had to kind of figure out, using like, all right, they're numbered sequentially. There's a numbering system on the animatic itself. I just kind of match up shot 1, shot 2. So using my using common sense and whatever prior understanding or vague understanding of the animation pipeline, I just had to figure it out without much direction. So yeah, I guess same
interesting.
Thing. That was the only time I had to do it.
And it's very interesting that that's what they wanted to test, because I feel like that's a very technical part, like doing that assembly sort of thing.
Yeah, and then on my first week, and I got to do that, and I was like, oh yeah, this is exactly what that test was. And then one of the first things my editor asked me to do was do a lip sync pass, and I had to be like, what does that mean? And for those who aren't animation editors that might be listening or watching, a lip sync pass is sometimes when the first pass of animation comes back in, and maybe especially if you have a foreign animation studio that's doing the animation, sometimes the mouths aren't perfectly timed to the dialogue, and there's ways to use the editing tool, your editing software, to mask around someone's mouth and hold on frames or close frames, or kind of use frame by frame animation and a mask around the mouth to retime someone's dialogue. That's not something that I always had to do as an assistant editor, but that was on this particular show. I think they knew they had a lot of new animators working on it as at the company that they were using. So
yeah, I was gonna say definitely one of those things that you can only really get away with doing on those like puppeted animation shows that a lot of adult animation seems to use. They're fairly static most of the time. You can kind of
it only really works. It only really works full in a foolproof way when it's static, when it's 2D animation especially. Not really something you can do in CG or 3D animation.
Yeah, or hand drawn like Tails was.
You might be able to get away with like closing a mouth for the end of a shot, and then it cuts in before your brain realizes that some frames are being held and you're cutting away, and you can trick it that way. So learning how to retime lips to improve animation, or really retime any part of the scene to retime animation was one of those tricks that I kind of fell upon the first time. Speaking of past projects of yours, do you have a favorite or one that kind of you're most proud of?
I really have to split this between two, and I'll explain why. I feel like Digman was a favorite creatively. I feel like when I watched that show, I can really see my hand in it. Like I was pretty heavily involved at every step that an editor can be. Like the art director was out for a bit, and I just did the entire color correct for a couple episodes. Like I was going to the mixes and giving notes. Um, yeah, I just feel like I had played a big part in that one, and I'm very proud of it from a creative standpoint. I think the season one that I worked on came out really well. But then it was a difficult show. I think we were spending a long time getting it right and refining jokes. So from a sort of work-life balance perspective, I think that Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, particularly the second season when we had kind of gotten into a groove and figured out, you know, all the quirks that a season one will create. Once those were ironed out, I feel like that show ran so smoothly. I don't think I worked a single hour of overtime on season two, and that's how you know it's being well run, you know. So loved the crew of that one as well. I think when I think of a project in the past that I loved working on, it's always because it had an amazing crew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that. Although I will say, once I got into animation, I can't really count a bad crew that I've worked with. I feel like just as a whole, it's one of the things that I've taken away from working in animation. Not really to knock my reality TV days. That was just bigger crews and more personalities and more editors. And I think there was a bit of a natural pecking order and kind of hierarchy to it with some egos involved in that. And I know I just kind of felt like I had much less of that in the animation world. I always, I always endearingly call the animation world like the art class of or the art school of the entertainment industry. Because you have such all these really talented artists, but you get a lot of like alternative personalities and cool.
You can
cool
just say that they're really nerdy. Like, that's it. Like,
yeah, but like cool styles and
that's true. Yeah, they're not like uncool nerdy. We're very cool nerdy in the animation industry.
Yeah, and like a ton of passion for the medium, and you always run into your like film nerds, but the animation community has a lot of like animation nerds and in a great way. So and it's a great way to kind of learn more about the animation history. I mean, I kind of came from a very kind of basic knowledge of like, well, of course I love the Disney Renaissance period and stuff, and Simpsons and Futurama and Family Guy and that kind of era of Fox's animation domination as far as deeper dives into films and in the animation world. Like, yeah, I got a real education.
Yeah, maybe
just from working
from
with
that
people. Yeah,
every crew has that one guy that wants to educate you on the very niche animated films from the 70s or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful for that, man. Let me just be clear.
Yeah.
Thank you. Man or woman.
Yeah.
If you want to tell me about an animated film I haven't seen that I'm going to love, please do.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of like dream future projects, assuming that the work keeps coming and stuff? But
this is going to tie in very, very well, maybe too well, because I feel like these days I'm not thinking quite as much about the project as I am about the people that I could be working with, or the people I have worked with that I want to work with again. I feel like on Avatar 7 Havens, the story team is so incredibly talented that I would happily follow them to whatever project they land on next and edit those boards some more. They do just really stunning sequences. And then, a lot of them are also on Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So, they've done incredible work. And if I wanted to take a break from that sort of action-heavy editing, then the people that wrote and directed on Digman, I also find hilarious, and I love working on comedy series. So something with those people working on it. But then, serious answer, I do also really enjoy what Green Street has been putting out. I loved Scavenger's Reign, probably one of my all-time favorite shows from the past few years. And they just announced that they were doing a new show today.
Yeah.
Did
So
you
that.
see it?
Yep. Yeah.
It was called Dealies.
Yes.
Another show coming out of Green Street. Very excited for that. A lot of the same people that worked on Common Side Effects or Scavenger's Reign seem to have their hands in this. Just really like the type of shows that they're doing.
Yeah.
So getting on one of those someday would be pretty fun.
Yeah.
But overall, yeah, I just want to follow the talented people that I've been lucky enough to work with on the past couple projects.
If you were to like give advice to someone trying to follow in your path or become an animation editor or just kind of even just learn about animation editing, what would you tell them?
Man, it's tougher now, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like first I'd say I'm sorry. um, I think it depends where you're at right now. Like, I think if you're still in college and you're finding out that animation editing is a thing and you're interested in it, the priority needs to be like apply to internships, try and get your foot in the door. And it doesn't have to be specifically for an editing internship. It could be anything animation related that like gets you out here or to a studio in one of the big cities, I would say. I mean, maybe there's one closer to home wherever you are, and that's good experience too. But my junior year of college, I must have applied to like hundreds of internships, just blasted them out. And like, don't copy paste, practice good resume and cover letter stuff. But it was so helpful for me to have more than one internship, as I touched on before, like the one that led into the DreamWorks one. And it was really that foot in the door that I needed to make connections out here and stay in this industry and progress in my career. But, I do know people that have like tried to put together a reel despite not having professional editing work yet. Like maybe they know a storyboard artist who doesn't mind that they grab their storyboards and cut them together into something, and they're trying to form a reel that way. And I think that's great. Like, not only do you have something to show when someday someone asks to see your reel, but it's practice, right? And like, you could maybe contact someone and get some feedback on the editing that you've done and like improve your skills even before you land that job that you're looking for. And like I said, like I started in different, like I started as a videographer, then I went to production. I think you don't have to aim straight for that editor role or assistant editor role. There might be a more roundabout path. And I think animation production is honestly a really good place to start. You kind of get this bird's eye view of the entire pipeline and process. And you also like talk to a lot more people when you're in production. Like, you have to. You go to meetings, take notes, and like ask for people's time cards. So you get to know a lot more of the other production people, of the artists, of the board artists, directors. And those are good relationships to have. So you got to put yourself out there anyway, hope that things turn around and more things get greenlit, and then you'll be ready when someone needs a PA or needs an assistant editor.
Yeah.
I think that'd be my advice.
Yeah. I think that it's interesting really right now because video editing as a skill is very prevalent and kind of across the board, not even just in traditional entertainment. Like, the whole YouTube industry and social media are all doing versions of video editing that have kind of become their own style. So learning a program actually is pretty accessible, it feels like, especially because there are free programs or
oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it, like, this is a little bit specific to LA people, but if you have an LA library card, you can learn whatever program you want. Like, they have that like LinkedIn Learning subscription that you can just get for free. It's like, and that's not even to mention all the YouTube tutorials out there for anything you want to learn about any software. I feel like you can find it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, if you know that this is a career you want to do, be comfortable in the software, so that when you actually do get into that position, you're not struggling with that part of it, right? You can focus on all the other things you need to learn, the animation specific things and the creative things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've recently kind of just started poking my head into like editor Reddits and stuff, and there's a Discord, there's a
Oh
few
yeah, yeah.
Discords, and like Premiere's got a
Oh yeah,
Discord,
yeah.
and there's stuff, and there's a lot of good just kind of back and forth from like, more green editors and more seasoned editors, green ones being like, how do I do this kind of thing, and whatever. And often I'll see someone like use a reference of like, here's this cool effect that I see in this video, how would I do this? And it's the kind of stuff where like, yeah, if you don't have any kind of training, or you're not like on a staff with someone who's doing that on your show, and you look over their shoulder and watch how they do it, then yeah, that's how you find out. Even as an assistant editor, figuring out how to export something at a specific deliverable, like Google is your friend. Don't quote me on that.
Google Gemini's not your friend. It will
Right.
lie to you
Yeah,
because it's
but
an AI
just
and it doesn't
looking
know
up
anything.
something, and there's plenty of forums, both for Adobe and Avid and Resolve.
Creative Cow is your friend.
Yeah,
Creative
Creative Cow
Cow's the
was a big
real
thing back in the day.
place.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And yeah, especially if you run into technical problems, that knowledge or that instinct to be like, all right, I'm going to try these basic things, and if none of those work, then I start looking up something deeper might be going on. And then you kind of learn a little bit of how the back end of some of these programs work, like how to clear your cache and where project backups are saved on your drive and that kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
yeah.
And I know that that's the kind of stuff that you won't know just like opening up a program and like playing around with the buttons and stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff that you'll need to learn by making that mistake, or not even making another mistake, but just like having that situation happen to you. So without a physical community as like in the form of a show or a crew, use any kind of forums that you can to source any kind of advice and troubleshooting and knowledge that you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
find, and that I think that's all pretty helpful. I think a lot of us fell into animation editing and maybe didn't pursue it, or didn't know how to pursue it, and the kind of opportunity came up because you may have like built up met the right person, or back to our original talking point at the top, like networking is also something that you can do at any stage of your career. And it's okay to say that I haven't edited on a project before, but I'm interested. When you're at a networking event, people will see that, and you might run into the right person that's willing to keep in touch with you and give you advice, and maybe even kind of show you some things. So
Yeah, I will say though, I feel like you got to be careful going into those events with the mentality of like, I just need to meet the right person, because it's really not about finding the right person, or else, you're going to be looking forever. Like
right.
you get to know as many people as you can, and especially the ones that you really connect with when you're talking to, want to form a relationship with, no matter if you think they can help you or not. Like, it shouldn't be transactional like that.
All right, well, I think unless you have anything else to add about animation editing career, or
About animation editing, it's fun. It, I can attest to that. It is a
yeah.
good time. I do think about it a lot. Like, do you just think about conceptually, like, metaphors and like ways of explaining the difference to people between animation editing and live action? Like,
Yeah.
I think about it all the time. Like, you'd think about how a live action editor gets delivered shots, which they do have a role in sculpting performance. But I'd say like animation editors, especially when you're doing animatics, like, you are moving around the panels which have the facial expressions, and like adjusting the audio and picking takes in a way that like really sculpts performance, like not just on a shot by shot basis, but on a panel by panel, like within the shot. You can decide on the pace, you can take out breaths, you can add long pauses in the middle of a sentence, while all being in the same shot. I just feel like it's really cool, and it's really different. And I feel like sometimes when people start in animation editing, they don't really realize all that they're capable of doing,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to sculpting performance.
Yeah.
Like, they just like drop in the take that they're given, right? And maybe like line up the panels to where they think they should go. But like, you can really manipulate things. Like, you can make a long pause, or like for example, on Digman, Andy Samberg didn't want any breaths at all. He wanted us to speed through. And there were times we were even speeding up the dialogue a little bit and then pitching it down to like compensate for the speed up that we did. So he was fully embracing what animation could do in that regard. Like you can't just speed up live action footage by 25% and have people not notice.
Right.
So there's so much that you can do with it, and it's a really good time.
Yeah. Yeah, those are all good things to bring up because yeah, it's actually I feel like it's pretty common, especially in comedy, to have like, all right, here's our takes, and here's our 5% sped up takes, and here's our 10% sped up takes. Like I've been on shows where we just get the audio from the audio editor like that way, so we have the choice already. Or again, there might be specific reasons why certain things needs to be sped up. Yeah, I always got my takeaway has always been the realization that your audio and your video are not directly tied together in a way that like you spoke to, being able to pace out panels and determine the timing of someone's action, but also being able to use multiple takes for a line, word by word even, and to kind of build out takes. And I know actors maybe don't
borrow from other takes.
Yeah. Once you get the comparison to live action, is that you're still getting a bin of footage that's your media, and you're still crafting something together, performance and story and pacing, and it doesn't matter that you're not able to like switch to a wide shot when you want to switch to a wide shot. You can ask a director to say, hey, maybe we need a wide shot here. Can we draw it as a wide shot? And that is, a lot simpler and cheaper than you've already shot your film or you already shot your show, and you're talking to the director and we're like, I really wish we had better coverage. Can we go reshoot? And no, you can't. So, there's there's that kind of stuff that happens. But being able to just separate the audio from the video, that stuff is really fun. And as I was learning the craft, kind of felt like I was picking up all these like, oh, these are some hidden things that I can do. And or even just I learned how to keyframe by using an After Effects thing, and now I'm using it to like reanimate because sometimes I've like keyframed, like I was talking about the lip sync thing. Sometimes if a character's face isn't quite static but they're moving subtly enough, you can keyframe those mouth shapes to match along with their head movement, and then you're learning, and then you're also just essentially animating along with it. So just like, your job is to manipulate the media, the picture and the audio in a way that is that tells the story or tells a joke or tells a dramatic moment in the best way possible.
It's so much more malleable in animatic too. Like you talked about borrowing mouths earlier for picture editing, but in animatic you can like borrow entire heads if you need them. Like from a different scene, it's like, oh, I really like that expression that the character had a few shots earlier. Can you just grab that and like put it over the body in this shot? And like, and then that's also a way of like getting shots to hook up if they didn't hook up before. Like the great thing about the animatic is it doesn't need to look perfect. It's not what you're watching. Like it's just a blueprint for what they're going to do. So and you can really patch things together.
That's a good thing to bring up too, because I think even to my point about like, oh, let's go wide instead, you can reuse a shot that was tight, scale it down, and then use it like, all right,
just have like a white card.
And then that could be a template for maybe they redraw it so that you can fill out the space a little bit more. But like sometimes it's like, oh, actually, let's just like use this and then zoom out, and that's all we need to do, or whatever. Like you can create your camera moves in the edit in a way that is allowed, and not like, oh, this looks like way too flat for a live action thing that doesn't have any depth or whatever. I mean, sometimes the animation needs the depth too, depending on the style of your show.
So much happens in animatic. It's like such an important stage. It's a whole thing.
Whenever there's the question of what an animation editor does, it usually comes from a place of not understanding what an animatic, what the animatic does. And there are animatics in live action, but they're not. They're way more kind of like meant as a real pre-production element to kind of get a sense of what a scene's going to look like, and it's not like this is the blueprint of what the show's going to be, and then someone animates
Yeah.
it, and then you're just kind of finessing the animation once it's come back. That's the bread and butter of your creative role. So
Which,
it's
yeah.
just kind of like peeking a little bit behind the scene. Everyone's probably seen what an animatic is if they've seen like sometimes the promotional behind DVD behind the scenes extras kind of like side by
That's
side.
exactly how I found out how an animatic. That's exactly like where I saw my first animatic. It was a DVD extras for The Incredibles. I'm pretty sure. What do you know? What the first animatic you saw was? Do you remember?
I feel like, no, I don't know. It was probably like a Simpsons behind the scene thing. Let's dip out of editing for a little bit. Do you have like any outside hobbies that you like doing outside of editing? I think I know one particular area.
Okay, well, if you know it, what is it?
Yeah. Oh, the you have your game nights.
My game nights where I play video games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do enjoy them. Um, my friends and I are playing a good amount of Slay the Spire 2 right now. I I am also very into Super Smash Bros. Melee, the one from the Nintendo GameCube.
Oh, nice.
Um,
Yeah. We've been playing
yes,
Ultimate on Switch with my kids.
great
Uh,
time,
that's super
good
fun. But
stuff.
yeah, Melee, it feels like one of the goats.
Oh yeah, it's good, and you can play it online now. So that's what we've been doing. But other than that, when I have the time and the motivation, I do sort of like working on my own animated material or animatics. I think Blender has been an amazing tool that it just keeps getting better, and it can do some really crazy stuff when if you are interested in like that sort of 3D animatic, sort of like 2D drawings in a 3D space, move them however you want, drop cameras. Like it's so powerful in what it can do. So I've been playing with that, and been taking my bike out and going on hikes while the weather is still not super hot.
Right. My next one kind of like, do you have any like maybe not hidden, but like hidden talents or passions, or I know a lot of editors are like musician came up as musicians or whatever, or I don't know, you were like a
Man,
a semi pro at Melee at this point, and
if I was talented at something, I don't think I would keep it a secret. Um, maybe it is melee. Just because that's not something I like come out with right away when I'm meeting people, because it's like they're like get all confused. They're like, "You mean the one from 20 years ago?" Um,
do you have a character that you're best at or best with?
yeah, it's probably Marth, and I might get hate from all the Fox mains out there, but it's how it is. I'm sorry. What about you? Do you have any? Well, I know that you like to play some music.
Yeah, yeah, I think music's my kind of like lifelong talent, I guess you could say. I started playing piano in kindergarten. That's when I started taking lessons, and um, stuck with it. And uh, toward the end of high school, was seriously considering going into music. And I was from Boston, and Berkeley College of Music is right there. And I had people that kids that I did band with that were applied and got in, and that was always something I was like, oh, maybe I should. And I also I loved playing sports as a kid, but found real quickly found out in my later teen years that I wasn't as athletic and talented at like basketball as some of the others, and so maybe high school sports isn't going to be my thing, and that's when I started leaning on music. And so I did like jazz band, and that was my extracurricular, and we did do competitions and stuff.
Nice.
I kind of got surprised my senior year. One of our last concerts, our band director gives out like essentially an achievement award. It was called the Louis Armstrong Award, and she starts talking about it, and in my mind, I was like, oh, there's this guy who's kind of like a top of the class, like he's a really good musician. He's kind of like a teacher's pet to the band director. I was assumed that he was going to get it, and so she starts talking about, oh, this guy came in when we needed a piano player in his second year, and he blew me away with his audition, and I was like, piano player, that's me. And yeah, so she ended up giving me this award, and I was like, yeah,
Oh
totally,
dang.
yeah. But again, it's
Sounds like you peaked, man.
yeah,
Like
maybe
where do you go from
I
there?
did. I was in a rock band, a trio rock band, with my buddies Seth and Dan, called Bulkhead. We were an instrumental, like funk ska. This was early 2000s, so like pop punk and that kind of stuff was popular. Chili Peppers style, like 311,
Yeah.
that kind of that influence. And yeah, we kind of all feel like we musically peaked in high school. Uh, so
I mean, yeah. I tried out for the jazz band because I was in marching band. I played the alto sax. I did not get into the jazz band. It was very hard.
mhm.
So, respect.
Yeah,
Lots
I
of
think I
respect.
I think being a piano player, I also played trumpet and I wasn't that good, but being a piano player was the kind of like was the in, because in the last few years of my high school career, I was teaching with a guy who was like was a jazz pianist, kind of by trade, and so once I got into jazz band, he really was like, oh, all right, now's my time to show what we can do. And then there's all this music theory that's involved in that, and that kind of piqued my interest. And there's a lot of freedom with how you play piano and guitar, and the backing, kind of rhythm section.
Yeah, specifically for jazz. Yeah.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of just going through chords, and you have some freedom to be like, all right, well, this is a C9 chord, and on a piano there's like a million different ways you can voice it with your fingers, and depending on
Yeah.
what you want to do. And that kind of like really opened up my mind to like improvisation and stuff, and that also tied in with playing guitar. It
So
ends
you'd
up
be
like,
pretty qualified to say, do you think editing's like jazz?
I think
I
editing,
would say it probably isn't. Probably isn't.
right.
But
My wife's aunt calls jazz chaos music, and she hates it. That it was rose me the wrong way, but there is a lot of truth to that because of the improvisation of it.
it's
But there is
structured
like kind of
chaos,
like a
though.
basic, it's based on a structure, and often a very standard structure. This is your blues progression. This is your whatever kind of progression, and
Yeah.
a lot of songs actually have very similar progressions, and then it's just the improvisation that makes it unique. And even in pop music and rock and pop music, like there are millions of songs that have the same four chord progression, and you can play those four chords and then play a melody of a popular song, and then just like, oh, here's another one that is same as that chord. There's a reason. That's just how music is structured. And it's the stuff that can go beyond the basic structure with lyrics, or with riffs, or with instrumentation, and that ties a lot into to filmmaking. Every script has a three-act structure. Essentially, every sitcom has story beats, and a certain amount of jokes that they have to hit per episode. Like, there's a structure to everything, and the more you watch it and the more you work in it, the more you recognize those patterns, and
Yeah.
get to play with those patterns, and play with the expectations and the cliches, and the play with the form. I think in comedy that works a lot. That works really well, because then you can kind of you hint to your audience that you're doing, oh, we're doing Bad News Bears, and as a parody, which is a direct reference to Strip Law, which is what we did, episode 3. And then the audience kind of knows what's coming, and then you get to kind of pull the rug out at certain points, and hit your punchlines. And yeah, I think that music and, yeah, maybe jazz, or maybe a good like guitar solo or something like that can kind of operate the same way.
Yeah, this is a semi-related tangent, but I YouTube the algorithm today decided that I should rewatch the Art of the Cut interview with Joe Walker from a few years ago when he was interviewed for Dune, and he started out as a composer, and I think I forgot that, but like that's another way in which music and editing are very related, in that they both kind of deal with rhythm. Um, and I would just add that I wish I was Joe Walker. He's just so unbelievably cool, man. Like
Yeah,
rewatching this interview, I'm like, gosh, I would give him half my salary if he would just like mentor me and make me into a small version of him. But
yeah.
I could never.
I always feel in awe of composers. And I was talking to one the other day at that event we were at, and kind of talking about how a lot of editors have musical backgrounds, and stuff. And he was saying that, like, yeah, sometimes you can tell that a edit has a a rhythm to it, and that helps kind of set the rhythm for whatever they're trying to compose, and kind of like vaguely answers one of my first questions that I want to ask a composer of like, so how do you do it? How do you
Yeah.
compose from nothing? And it's like, well, all right, well, if you
How do
already
the
have kind of a
music?
rhythm of a scene, and there's a bit of a tempo that you can like latch onto, that you can kind of.
I mean, they must be so like tuned in to the editing of a scene, so I wonder if they have opinions.
All right, we're gonna jump into our next segment now, freak out or geek out. That's where one of us will take something that they're really nervous or worried or anxious about, that they're freaking out about, and we'll talk about that. And the other one's going to talk about something they're really excited about, that they're geeking out about. Last time I did it in order of freak out then geek out, but I'm going to have you start. You start with your geek out.
My geek out is that a couple weeks ago, because I work on Seven Havens, we were invited to watch Avatar: Aang: The Last Airbender, the feature film coming out this year that is a sequel to Avatar: The Last Airbender and follows the group as they are older, going on a new adventure. Um, I don't know what I expected from this film, but I certainly did not expect it to be so beautifully animated by the Australian studio Flying Bark, and all the artists that worked on it did an incredible job. And it was one of those things, if you're a fan of animation, you watch and your jaw drops because you know how much work went into this thing, and every shot looks like it cost $6 million. It just really shines, and I would encourage everyone when it comes out to watch it the right way. I know that due to Paramount security and a certain hacker wanting to get the movie early, there you can find this movie online. But in order to make sure that all the artists who worked very hard on the movie benefit, and that they keep making movies like this, you got to show your support by watching it on, I believe, Paramount Plus whenever it drops later this year. So I was lucky enough to see it in the theater on the Paramount lot, and that was very cool. And I do really wish they would give it at least a tiny theatrical run, because it feels like the way the movie deserves to be seen. It was made for a big screen, and it's a little unfortunate that it's just going to end up streaming, but that is not a good reason to to like download the hacked, leaked version. So yeah, please support it. It turned out really, really well. If you're a fan of the original series, I think you'll love it. So
Nice.
it's a completely different story than we're not retelling like the Netflix quote unquote live action series is. It's original. It's a familiar character's original tale. That's my geek out.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm gonna go into a little bit of animation news with my freak out. So recently, Amazon announced a Gen AI Creators Fund, which will give filmmakers, digital creators, and technology startups access to Amazon's AI tools and funding to produce high-quality cinematic entertainment. That's not my specific freak out, but there was some controversy over a couple of these projects. The one I want to talk about is this one called Good Advice Cupcake. It's a BuzzFeed IP. It was something that was created for BuzzFeed by Lauren Brandt years ago, and they kind of didn't really do anything with. The creator of Cuppy, the star of the web series The Good Advice Cupcake, is calling out BuzzFeed for partnering with Amazon for an AI-created animated series about the character. Here's her statement. I am horrified and disgusted by BuzzFeed taking my character, The Good Advice Cupcake, and giving it to an AI platform. My time at BuzzFeed was marked by continually being taken advantage of and lied to. They repeatedly assured me in good faith that they would never do anything with Cuppy without my input, yet offered me no legal options, insisting that I would never need them. The news that this character, who is based on my own personality, and whom I created as a microphone to spread love and positivity, has been taken and turned into a soulless AI puppet, feels like having my intestines pulled out of my body. Somebody leaked the news to me early on that there was talks happening, and I pleaded with the CEO, Jonah Peretti, directly not to do it. Instead, he tried to talk me into signing an NDA. Obviously, I did not. This is an assault on artists everywhere. I encourage you to boycott BuzzFeed and any AI-produced or adjacent animation. So basically the gist of what I'm upset about is the threat of anything that you've created as a creator this is kind of opening the door to that studio doing something that you may not agree with this new AI with AI and AI generated
Yeah, I was gonna say
technology.
I do think it's the AI part of the story that makes it scary, because a studio owning a character you've created is really nothing new, right? Like that's existed for a long time. I think a lot of people in the animation industry have run up against it, where they created this thing, this show with these characters, and it really took off, but they don't really actually own these things, or else they would make a ton of money off of merchandise, right? Like it's the property of the studio, and they have frequently demonstrated that they can do what they want with these IPs from all the reboots that we see. But the fact that now they might want to use AI to do that, even if the creator like strongly objects to that technology, I think that's what makes this story stand out a little bit and has kind of created the firestorm that it has.
Yeah, a lot of places are doing this. We're leaning more into this AI kind of revolution, um, whether it's a trend or bubble or whatever. Like a lot of places are doing it, and it is creating kind of a bad PR storm. And the animation community, especially the artists in the animation community, are have been flying red flags about AI for years, and it's one of these things that it rubs a
Yeah, I
lot
mean,
of way.
in a way, in a way, it is kind of fortunate that this story has provoked so much vitriol, right? It would be terrible if this just happened quietly or was happening a lot, without any pushback. But it seems like people do hate this and want to push back against it, and I think that it should create bad PR for BuzzFeed if they're going to pull a move like this.
Yeah.
I personally find it disagreeable. Yeah, they're kind of reaping what they sowed, I would
Yeah.
say.
I started off by being pretty opposed to it, kind of for these reasons. As it kind of starts to feel like it's, at least at this current moment, a near unavoidable part of what this industry is doing right now. So it kind of feels like something that, even if you don't want to be working on an AI generated, like pure AI generated like project, like, you, at least it does at least feel like you need to be aware of the stuff that is happening, and for editing, aware of what AI tools are being incorporated into our editing tools.
I don't know if you want my opinion on the AI stuff. We could be here for another hour, because we've talked a little bit about this before. I do not believe that it is so inevitable like they make it out to be, and I think there are a lot of big problems, economic problems, with how AI is currently structured, and they're not profitable. I feel like people should be saying that so
Yeah.
much more. They haven't figured out how to make money. And I
Right.
feel like if you want to be a big business, big tech company, you kind of have to do that eventually. You can't just burn through all the investor cash,
Yeah.
and then turn up empty-handed with a ton of debt.
Yeah.
So there may be a correction at some point. And like this isn't to say we shouldn't, we should just disregard all the AI stuff happening in our industry. Like I follow it closely, even though I do believe it's a bubble that's destined to pop, because like it or not, it is affecting us. I think
Mhm.
some people we know may have been asked like, "Hey, can you use AI at work?" you know.
Yeah.
So like I think it's affecting us most because it affects those people at the top that feel like they need to be doing AI more, and then
Right.
they trickle down and they say like, hey, use AI, become efficient, without really knowing what that's going to do. They've just been pressured that they need to do it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, yeah, all valid, and yeah, I just kind of feel like the part of me that's like maybe a little bit open to it, kind of it certain aspects of it being involved in our workflows, is that I'm always a proponent of, like, how do we do some of these like tedious things faster? How do we automate some things?
As I want to rail against AI, I will clarify it's against generative AI
Mhm.
in its form that we're more familiar with. But I mean, the NLEs have been using AI tools for a while now in little small ways, like you're saying, like that auto transcription. And that, as far as I know, is not tapping into ChatGPT to get the job done,
Right.
right? In a way that I would have ethical concerns.
Yeah.
It is kind of just a little tool that is built to do the one thing that it does. And I think that is what AI is really good at. It's like doing one specific task that is kind of tedious, that it doesn't have to worry about hallucinating weird creative problems, you know.
Yeah.
When it's built for one singular thing like that, and it isn't draining an entire town's water to power the data farm, a data center, it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's got its use.
Yeah.
But yeah, the AI that you talk about when someone wants to talk to you about AI, I am generally not not for
Right.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you there. My broader point is that, like, I think we're fine in that so many people come into Hollywood to create stuff themselves. And that didn't go away because AI is here. And whether it's doing stuff for studios or not, or doing stuff independently, I think we're always going to be able to. There's always going to be people who want to create stuff themselves, and it's just a matter of whether the existing structures can continue to support that, or if we need to kind of
Yeah, and
collectively
also the
rebuild an alternate way of supporting that way of doing it, and
yeah, and also the big
or
question
some
is, do they need
hybrid.
to come here, right? Do they need to come here to do it
Yeah,
anymore? And I feel like it's not necessarily AI that started that question. It's the all the remote work and the globalization that got supercharged from COVID. I
yeah,
mean, you can work anywhere you want in the world and kind of have an animation job if you have the right equipment at
right.
home.
Yeah,
So it's like, why do we have to hire people that live in LA and have a higher cost of living and want to be paid more? You know, that's the outsourcing danger that we run into.
yeah. We've expanded my freak out into really what a lot of us have been freaking out about for
Yeah, we got really general with it.
years. Yeah, in general.
We
And
went from a small freak out to the one big freak out
yes,
that
yeah.
we are
I
all
mean,
experiencing: job
that's the
insecurity.
rabbit hole. You know, we're both in the Editors Guild. We're both like proponents of a lot of the efforts of trying to keep work in California and the legislation that's being put out currently for that. But cat's out of the bag about how much, you know. I mean, unions can only do so much. Legislation can only do so much. Tax credits can only do so much. It's not going to bring everything back, and it maybe shouldn't bring everything back. We're not the only place making great content, so everything's expanding, and this whole non-Hollywood industry is built up next to Hollywood and surpassed Hollywood in a lot of ways. And a lot of
Yeah,
people
yeah.
that aren't covered by unions are global and not going to be covered by U.S. tax incentive laws. Like, all this kind of stuff like that is going to continue to happen, and so um, you know, there's a big there's a big kind of big flux right now. And
Yeah, man, you've drawn me into your freak out.
I
I'm in
know,
the middle of
yeah,
freaking. But like, I freak out, but I'm also weirdly excited for what that means.
yeah,
Like, Joe in Montana doesn't have to move out to LA to make his dream movie. I hope he doesn't use generative AI to do it. Like, I mentioned Blender before earlier in this episode, and
yeah,
like, it's amazing. Like, you don't have to pay for a 3D animation license. Like, Blender's free. You can like watch some YouTube tutorials, download Blender, and make that dream film that you wanted to. Like, it's so much easier now than it's ever been to make your own animation if you have, you know, the will to learn, to practice, and the time to put into it. You know, you can publish
yeah,
it online. I love the independent animation scene. There's a lot of really cool creators out there who just set up a Patreon, you know, once they get kind of big, and then it means they can just keep making their own stuff with whatever they choose, whatever tools that are out there to make it with. Oftentimes it is like Blender or other animation programs, and then, you know, they put it out for their niche audience, and we eat it up and we love it. And we contribute to their Patreon and wait for the next one. It's a cool arrangement.
yeah. It's really cool that people could just find audiences that would really have to go through lots of different stages and red tape and merit based things, or you know, this person who knows this person who knows this person that gets you in, and there's so much about our current Hollywood system that is really kind of flawed in that way, that really limits how many people can just do things that get on TV or get on streaming services or get in the theaters. And you know, it's really great that people don't need to be discouraged by that limitation. They can just kind of be like, you know what, I can just do it myself.
The traditional routes to that sort of thing, to getting like studios to give you money to make a movie, are dead, right? Like it's now like the studios will look to the people that are already popular online and be like, let's give them the resources to make a movie. I think just this month we're like seeing the results of that with those movies that just came out, like Backrooms,
Yeah.
with Obsession. Like there's very young directors that kind of get their start. Just like he taught himself how to use was it Blender?
I don't know.
I mean, is he proving my point? It might have been. I vaguely remember it being that, but yeah. So I rest my case.
Yeah.
It's a good thing in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I've turned it into a geek out as well. You're
Yeah.
welcome.
That's why these two things are so tied together.
They're intertwined.
Yes, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. We covered a lot.
Sure did.
Yeah, but thank you for being here. You know, it's
Yeah,
great,
of course.
great having you here talking shop and kind of talking about animation and the industry as a whole. And
Yeah, thank you for having me.
all right, and thank you, listener and viewer, for watching and listening. We'll have more episodes to come with some other editors and some great guests. Thanks.